Jasper here. Okay, guys, y'all have such good ideas, but I'm gonna now have to limit idea choosing to the ideas in the newest video, the current video you're watching, because it would be a hassle trying to find other people who suggested the same idea from my other videos. So if I only take video ideas from here, it would make my job of choosing ideas much easier, just letting y'all know. Today, I'm gonna talk about what I think would happen if Harold never quit in Japan. If you didn't know, in the Japan episode, Team Victory lost the commercial challenge. They lost because of Harold's idea to do a sad samurai commercial. Because of that, Alejandro tells Harold to quit, so Leshawna would appreciate and be impressed with his actions, but in this universe, Harold would have a bit more common sense and would feel Leshawna would still want Harold to keep competing, and would be more impressed if he showed more of his skills to her, so he wouldn't follow what Alejandro said, and keeps playing the game. It's crazy how I haven't talked about the Gen 1 cast since June. It's been a while. I want to thank at user XN1XT2WC2E, at Silly Lil Autistic Dude, at Hussein4K4, and CXROQ. Thank y'all for the ideas of this video. Big thanks to y'all for watching, and I want to thank the overall subscribers of this channel. Thank you so much for 350 subscribers. That is incredible, and we can hit 500 in no time at that rate. So thank you so much, and if you want to help me a bunch, just tell your friends about my channel. And I am splitting this into 2 parts. Enjoy! Episode 1 and 2 would pretty much go the same, since the what if doesn't change anything, so we'd still get our interactions, like Ezekiel annoying Chris, Alejandro rizzing Bridget, and Lindsay, Sierra being obsessive over my boy Cody, Heather wanting to befriend Sierra for an alliance, the song Aspect being introduced, and Duncan and Gwen refusing to sing. The pyramid challenge in Egypt still happens, and the same people go the same way. Izzy and Ezekiel would still become mummies. Courtney and Gwen would annoy Duncan with their bickering. DJ gets the animal curse, and Harold would be spitting facts. And Duncan would still quit because he hates singing. Episode 2 would go the same as well. With the Nile crossing challenge, the teams would still be the same, as the order in which people arrive doesn't change. Amazon get the camel, Team Chris gets the goat, and Team Victory gets the divining rod. Everyone is able to arrive at the Nile. Unlike my other world tour, What If, Sierra and Izzy would team swap, and Chris allows it. I just realized Sierra was always on Team Amazon, but whatever. Sierra basket weaves very well, and Rowan time still happens, which Ezekiel still loses the divining rod. Because he loses it, his team loses because in this episode, it won't be an elimination unless your team loses their item, which Ezekiel did, so everyone's voting him and he's obviously out. Okay, here's the episode with the changes. Most of this episode would still play out the same. Chris tells everyone they're landing in Japan. Harold makes his comment about Chef's Chinese outfit, and everyone is sent flying into a huge rice bowl. Leshawna would be mad at Harold for causing everyone to fall, which Harold explains he knows a lot about Japan, which Alejandro would charm Leshawna with some Japanese. Harold would see Alejandro's charming, and he doesn't like that. The first challenge is pinball, which Harold and Tyler bond a bit because they like Japanese game shows. Leshawna would still choose DJ to go, which he is not thrilled about. Alejandro would volunteer for Team Chris and cuddles the panda instantly. Cody would volunteer, and Sierra would still get chosen to be with him. DJ is attacked by his panda. Alejandro would work well with his panda, and Cody and Sierra are smooching. Between everyone, Alejandro would still win for good cooperation with his panda, and we'd still get this confessional.
Is this her gum? Ew!
Cody is hilarious. Because Team Chris won, they choose the items first, which they still come up with the alien monster idea. Victory is next, and Harold would still want the sad, rainy samurai commercial, which he thinks it's good. And lastly, Heather, Courtney, and Gwen would just bicker, leaving Cody and Sierra to film their crazy commercial. Of course, between the teams, Amazon is still winning somehow, and Team Victory would still lose. Now here are the changes. After the challenge, Leshawna tells Harold that his samurai idea was terrible, and he's the reason why the team lost. Harold would acknowledge his commercial may have lost the challenge, but still thinks his commercial was right. Leshawna would complain about Harold enforcing everyone to be sad and uncreative rather than catchy and entertaining like the other teams, which makes Harold think about what he has done. Lastly, Leshawna ends this talk off with this. If your ideas can't help us win, then we'd be better off not hearing your ideas at all, and I can't trust you in challenges until you prove you're better. This would leave a dent in Harold's heart, as he would think, ouch, Leshawna doesn't really like me for what I've done. Maybe as a samurai, I should honor her by doing what's best for her and my team. Really, Harold would feel very bummed he made Leshawna feel this way, and he wouldn't want his love to be mad at him, so he feels he has to do something for her, like doing better for the team and changing himself maybe. Alejandro would see Harold sad and would have a talk with him about Leshawna loving guys with honor. Harold would agree Leshawna likes guys with honor, but he thinks he should help her in challenges and do things she likes, like spending time with her, rather than just leaving her sad and angry. So in the elimination, DJ is voted out for hurting the pandas and is happy he's voted out. Harold would try to gain the confidence to tell Leshawna sorry for failing her and the team and show his honor towards her and be a better man for her. We'd see Team Amazon enjoying their time in first class as they relax, and Sierra would give Cody a foot massage. Harold would try to sit next to Leshawna, hoping he can gain the confidence to say sorry. But Leshawna would keep moving away from him, and he is left alone. Alejandro notices Harold is still here, and would ask if he's done anything for Leshawna, which Harold says, not yet. And he doesn't want to leave on a bad note with her. Alejandro would only say that he should try being there for Leshawna, listen to her feelings, and obey what she tells you to do, which Harold says sure, and Alejandro didn't expect Harold to stay, as he thought he would have gave up for Leshawna. Everyone would fall out the plane. I feel like Harold would try to warm himself by rubbing his hands together to create some heat and spread to other places of his body. He would notice that a bunch of the girls, including Leshawna, are clinging onto Alejandro. Harold would not like Alejandro taking Leshawna away, and when Harold tries to tell Leshawna to rub her hands, she dismisses him, saying she's trying to warm up. Harold is sad that Leshawna wouldn't listen to him now. He sees Tyler, who is alone and cold, and feels he can seek comfort talking to the guy. Harold would first tell Tyler about rubbing his hands, which Tyler thanks Harold for. Harold would tell Tyler, within these few hours, I feel like Leshawna has been a bit cold to me and is literally warming up to Alejandro, and he's sad that Leshawna wouldn't even listen to him anymore. Tyler would also share his concerns for Lindsay, telling Harold that she forgot his name and is worried she doesn't love me anymore. Harold can relate with the feeling, with both men looking at their lovers embracing Alejandro and thinking it doesn't look right. Chris announces the river crossing challenge. Everyone is with their teams. Leshawna would suggest everyone try their best to slide over the ice, but Harold would tell the team about rubbing hands to keep warm, which Leshawna coldly tells Harold to think about the challenge for once, which makes Harold sigh, but he tells the team that there should be a leader to lead the team, so we know where to jump and we'll all be together, which Leshawna sighs and just tells everyone to not slip. Everyone tries to make their way. Noah and Owen would be clumsy. Cody would fall into the water, making Sierra go to save him. Alejandro would save Bridget, but Bridget would comment we're not on the same team, but Alejandro says his mother raised a gentleman. The two jump and they still have that kiss, which flusters Bridget. Sierra would save Cody and they make it past. When Alejandro and Bridget make it, Bridget is blushing, but Harold would see and find it suspicious that Alejandro is helping Victory. Next is sledding. Heather would be whipping Courtney. Izzy is riding with Tyler, pushing, and I think Harold would ask Leshawna if he wants him to do it, but Leshawna tells Harold to move as she's the one pushing. Gwen would be picked up first. With Courtney complaining about the whipping, Noah would have to run after Izzy fails to call out the team members, and Harold would be trying to gain the confidence of saying sorry to Leshawna, as he thinks this is the chance. As he's about to say sorry, Lindsay is picked up, and Leshawna would be happy to pick up Lindsay, which delays Harold's apology. Alejandro would still be rizzing Bridget, showing his abs, and when they reach for a kiss, Bridget would get stuck to a pole. Alejandro is picked up, and the song would still happen. With Harold here, and Leshawna being able to see, they won't forget Bridget, and they would see her stuck to the pole, and Victory is shocked to see what happened. Harold thinks he knows what happened, as Bridget says Alejandro did this. Well, tries to say. Harold would immediately ask if there's water, which there is none, so Harold would stock up some saliva so it can set Bridget free. It's a gross scene, but Harold's able to set Bridget free. And the team would be very proud, especially Leshawna, who thanks Harold for the first time this season, which Harold is very happy and proud about, and has newfound confidence. Now that Victory are on their feet, they are able to catch up to Team Chris, who are about to break the ice bridge. They pass, but Harold notices everyone has fell, and Tyler is hanging. Harold would immediately jump off the sled, making Leshawna sigh once again. Harold would give a hand to Team Chris as Noah, Owen, and Izzy thank/respect Harold. Harold would just eye Alejandro down, saying nothing as he knows what he did. Tyler would get back on his feet, and everyone but Alejandro would thank Harold, and Tyler pats Harold, saying we should finish. Lindsay and Bridget clap and appreciate Harold's kindness, while Leshawna is sort of happy. The teams are at the same slope. Team Amazon is ahead by a little bit, but Noah would still have the idea to lean, which gives them more speed. Harold would see and would tell Victory to do the same. Both teams would actually finish before Amazon. Heather would be very mad that she did all that work for nothing. Leshawna would thank Harold for being a better team player today than last day. Harold would finally have the confidence to say sorry, and now has Leshawna's forgiveness as she hugs him for a second. Harold is celebrating in the confessionals. After the hug, Owen tries to celebrate with Alejandro, but Alejandro doesn't like Owen calling him Al, and leaves to smile back at Leshawna and Lindsay, who wave back to him, while Harold gets even more suspicious seeing this. Team Amazon is at elimination. Heather would be bickering with Courtney for not doing any better. Cody is voting Sierra, of course. Heather wanted to work more with Sierra, so I think they can agree to vote Courtney for not doing any better, which I think Sierra would agree with, as she sees Heather as nice. Heather tries to get Gwen's vote, but she doesn't give a clear answer on whether she's voting. Heather then tells Sierra to get Gwen's vote for Courtney, which she does, and Gwen would just agree with Sierra, as she'd rather vote with someone for someone rather than a tie by some chance. So with 3 votes, Courtney is out for not doing any better, and threatens legal action against Heather for whipping her, which Heather doesn't care. If you're wondering why Gwen would vote with Heather, 1, she only thinks she's voting with Sierra, and 2, Gwen wouldn't care if Heather or Courtney were out, as the 3 didn't like each other at the moment. Just thought I should clear this up. Anyways, Heather would still try to be nice to Sierra and Cody so she can align with them. Bridget and Leshawna would be complimenting Harold on how good he did last challenge, with Bridget extensively thanking Harold for setting her free and save us for possibly voting one of us out. And Harold's like, it's my pleasure. Harold would then try to tell Bridget that she shouldn't trust Alejandro at all, and as she agrees, Alejandro pulls up giving chocolate bars to Lindsay and Leshawna, and manages to make Bridget blush, which Harold is not happy about. Alejandro would try to give one to Heather, but she declines, and Alejandro would admit Heather's good. After Alejandro leaves, Harold straight up tells his team that we should not trust Alejandro or else he'll keep charming us and tricking us in challenges like he did to Bridget. The 3 girls like Alejandro. Bridget would agree, while imagining Alejandro is next to her. Leshawna tells Harold, I get you did well last challenge, but what makes me think I can fully trust you and your claim? And Lindsay's just chewing her chocolate bar, which Harold facepalms. Everyone lands in New York, and Lindsay would be excited to shop, and Harold would probably express his facts about New York, but Leshawna would shut down the facts. The first challenge is to get the baby stroller. We can see Cody trying to volunteer, but Heather would insist that Sierra should choose, which she's ecstatic to go after Cody. Harold would huddle up with Team Victory to tell them we finish this challenge as fast and not let Alejandro charm you, and ignore. Bridget agrees, Leshawna reluctantly agrees, and Lindsay's just okay. Soon, Alejandro would tell Sierra to share Chris's embarrassing past. We can see Team Amazon and Victory arriving at the same time to get their strollers. Everyone but Owen would have made it up. As Amazon and Victory get their strollers, Alejandro would notice, but he just blows a kiss to Lindsay. Leshawna and Bridget would blow back, but Harold would ask, why are they still fixated on Al, and they should move on. Bridget would say, you're right, but awes her, and Alejandro together. Lindsay says maybe you don't know Alejandro and we should give him a chance. Leshawna would understand Harold's trying to get the team to succeed, and after some warnings, Leshawna understands she shouldn't do things like this, and would agree with Harold to not get near Alejandro, which Harold likes as he feels someone is finally listening to him. Heather would still catch on to Alejandro, making Sierra less useful. Amazon and Victory slide down. Soon, Team Chris grabbed their stroller and slide down. Owen would still get stuck, and Alejandro would show his nasty side, hitting him down. Cody would still fall off the boat, but this time, Harold would see and generously help Cody up, and would take him with them. Cody would thank Harold. Later, Team Chris would arrive after being eaten by the sewer crocodile. Heather would tell Team Victory to not kidnap Cody again, but Leshawna corrects Heather, saying Cody fell off and we took him, causing Gwen to thank Victory and to take Cody back. Sierra would tell everyone about Chris's band, Fametown, which everyone laughs at. Everyone would arrive at the pond at the same time. Sierra would bob the apple. Tyler does it. And then Harold would volunteer, but Leshawna would tell Harold she's sorry and she didn't listen to him earlier and she's gonna bob. Harold would have a confessional, feeling someone finally respects him on the team and actually listens to him. Alejandro would charm Heather, but Heather just gets very mad every time, which Harold notices. After Alejandro leaves, Harold would see Heather switch Team Chris's stroller with a random one. Harold would get the impression Heather also hates Alejandro and wants to see him fall. To him, he sees this as a possible chance he can work with Team Amazon to make Alejandro get voted out. Harold would compliment Heather's moves and promises not to tell, which Heather appreciates. Out of the teams, I feel like Amazon is still winning, as Chris would arrive first, but Noah is missing, so they get the prize. Harold is sorta bummed Team Chris isn't sending someone home, but is kinda interested in knowing what the prize is. Later in the day, Harold would approach Heather, affirming we don't like Alejandro. Right, which Heather explains her hate towards him, so Harold would offer an alliance to get Alejandro out that lasts until he's out, even in the merge. Basically, the two will help each other in secret in challenges so Team Chris loses, but they don't tell their teams about the alliance. So we can have no targets on us for being in an alliance, in case he makes it to the merge. Heather would like the idea of working with Harold to get Alejandro out. She acknowledges that she can definitely use some of Harold's smarts to ease challenges, but can be a threat once Alejandro is gone. But luckily she can have Sierra and Cody help vote him out once he's a threat. So Heather is more encouraged to accept this alliance, so she can have Sierra and Cody's votes once Harold is a threat. Heather agrees, and Harold tells Heather to keep the prizes no matter what, as it can be useful, and he can come up with a good use for them in the future challenges, which Heather agrees to keep. Because of this, Heather wouldn't throw out the meat grinder. She'd still think it's weird, but she'd keep it because Harold said so. Cody is just happy to get stashes of candy. Aftermath time, Jeff and Blaney are introduced and they do not get along. The other contestants are happy that they aren't in the show anymore. We get our segments like sightings of Duncan and Ezekiel. Blaney would try to piss off Jeff a bit by mentioning Bridget has been getting very close with Alejandro recently, which Jeff would really not want to hear, especially from Blaney, who he hates already and doesn't want to believe Bridget is cheating. We get our first guest, who is Courtney, who complains about Heather whipping her in Yukon. Jeff would play the clip on repeat. Jeff and Blaney would be laughing, finding the whipping to be crazy and maybe even effective, which Courtney doesn't agree on. Jeff would ask Courtney her thoughts on Duncan going missing, which she genuinely be concerned about, and is asking anyone to find him. She even sings some song about him. That's gonna leave a mark happens, and Izzy and Chef's fight scene and the last guest, DJ is out, and is shown clips of him hurting animals, which makes DJ cry. Jeff then makes DJ pet the animals for a challenge, which goes horribly wrong as the animals are let loose. Yeah, Jeff and Blaney are mad that the studio is messed up, but they tell each other you have to clean it. Now, ending the aftermath with more bickering. We'd start off with Owen's team flexing, which Harold reminds them they lost the challenge. Alejandro would blow one kiss to the girls, making on victory, which they start to blush, but Harold would try to wipe the love in the air, telling everyone to stop, but Alejandro would shove Harold to hold Lindsay's hands. Harold is shoved into Tyler, who isn't flattered with Alejandro's charisma. Heather would be listening to Sierra's yapping about her fan club and her predictions for this elimination. Alejandro would try to hold Leshawna's hand, but Harold would slap him, making Al go away. Everyone is dropped in Germany. We'd see Lindsay and Bridget hold on to Alejandro for warmth, while Leshawna stays close. Lindsay would be telling Alejandro that she misses Tyler, which Tyler hears and is bummed that Alejandro stole his girl, which Harold also agrees is bad. Everyone would have to be quiet while singing a song. Harold would be whispering to everyone to not cause an avalanche, or else everyone will die. While singing, we'd see Harold push Alejandro away from Lindsay and Bridget, but Alejandro would tell Lindsay that there's a shopping mall down there, which she screams in joy, and still causes the avalanche. Leshawna and Bridget would blame Lindsay for almost getting everyone killed, like Harold said, but Harold would blame it all on Alejandro for making Lindsay scream, but Alejandro would ask Harold if he's accusing him of doing such bad thing. Bridget would ask Alejandro if he had anything to do with this, but he lies, saying, I would never put my love in danger. reaching in for another kiss with Bridget, which pisses Harold. Heather would believe Alejandro caused the avalanche and is sick of him and his moves. Harold asks Heather if she has the prize, which Heather says she does and is holding it in her hands. The meat grinding challenge happens, which Chris tells Amazon they have the advantage because of the Greek meat grinder. Heather is celebrating that Alejandro has no chance of beating us in the challenge. Heather would thank Harold and would start to think Harold is a bit more useful teammate rather than do this, and fail. With the meat grinder, Team Amazon is able to make their sausage go sausage first. So Heather would pass the meat grinder to Harold, who passes it to Bridget because she's making sure the meat passes through. Bridget gets it, but Alejandro would see the grinder and would charm Bridget into carelessly giving him the grinder. Harold wouldn't notice as he's checking if the meat goes through. Team Amazon and Chris would go down together, which Harold is confused about and looks at Bridget, who doesn't have a meat grinder. Harold would tell Bridget, if we lose this challenge because of the meat you gave the meat grinder, then we are voting you out, which Bridget is embarrassed about and agrees. Team Amazon gets the hard helmets, Chris with the winter hats, and Victory with the German hats and the German bikini, which Harold suggests Bridget wear for giving the meat grinder, but Chris makes Harold wear it for suggesting someone. For the fires, we have 3 from Amazon and Victory and 2 from Team Chris to make it 8. Pair-ups are the same, but instead of Leshawna, Bridget volunteers to repay her mistakes, and DJ is replaced by Harold. So it would now be Noah versus Bridget, Alejandro versus Cody, Sarah versus Harold, and Heather versus Owen. Throughout the challenge, Alejandro would be motivating Bridget to seize the day, and she does. Alejandro beats Cody. Harold would try to do his kung fu moves, but after seeing Cody go, she pushes Harold off, winning. And Owen would fall. Next is Bridget versus Heather and Sierra versus Alejandro. Alejandro would tell Bridget to seize the day once more, but Heather would tell Alejandro she's not even on your team, which Bridget would actually slap Heather many times, going ballistic mode out of anger for Island, and Heather is out. Alejandro would be slapped off for being distracted. Heather would tell everyone she totally orchestrated this. Between Bridget and Sierra, if she has the same anger towards Heather, I think Bridget can win as Sierra only beat Alejandro because he was distracted. Bridget would be wrestling. Team Victory would be proud of Bridget for winning the challenge, and when Harold tells Bridget to next time just ignore Alejandro, Bridget gets mad at Harold because Alejandro has done nothing but help her this challenge, which Harold is seriously pissed and hates Alejandro for controlling Victory. Team Chris is actually the ones at elimination because they were the first team eliminated. Noah and Tyler would probably think to vote for Alejandro as he's a sketchy manipulator. So Noah would also tell Owen to vote for Al. Alejandro would approach Owen to force him to vote for Noah as he's a schemer and didn't do much this challenge. Owen would keep telling Alejandro that Noah is their friend and shouldn't go after him. Alejandro over time would get annoyed with Owen's begging, so to not cause a scene, Alejandro would suggest Tyler be voted out, which Owen is okay with. Alejandro tells Owen to not tell Noah or Tyler or Izzy, while Alejandro would tell Izzy that he and Owen are voting for Noah, which Izzy would question why, but Alejandro explains they need her vote so it's not a tiebreaker. So Izzy agrees as she doesn't care about Noah. It's a tiebreaker and I have no idea what it would be, but if it was another slap fight, Alejandro would win. If it were any other though, Alejandro has a better chance because he's smart and strong and can beat Noah, so sorry Noah fans. Owen would be very sad of this loss, and Tyler would be frustrated that Al isn't out. Harold and Heather are shocked that Alejandro wasn't voted for basically losing the challenge for Team Chris. Owen would be sad that Noah is gone, and all he tells him is to be careful of eels. He tells this to Owen and Tyler is now afraid of losing as he knows he's going to get voted off if Alejandro voted with Izzy and Owen. He tells Harold this, that if Team Chris loses, then he'll be voted off. This leaves Harold torn as he doesn't want Tyler to stay, as he does want Tyler to stay in the game, but if Alejandro has Izzy and Owen's votes, then he's definitely out. So he wouldn't want Team Chris to lose, but he wouldn't want Team Amazon to either, as Heather is on the team and she'll get mad if he puts Team Chris over them. And plus, he wants Alejandro out, so Harold would try to devise a plan. Alejandro would be cuddling Bridget and Lindsay nearby. Leshawna is just sitting with Harold, quietly trying to distance herself from Alejandro. Everyone lands in the Amazon. Harold would be spitting facts about deadly species in the Amazon. Everyone now has to make it to Machu Picchu and avoid the zing-zings. I'm sure Harold would know his geography, so he would definitely choose the left path. Harold would tell Heather to go left as well, and when Heather asks about Team Chris going left too, Harold says he will block them if she does, which she does. Alejandro would ask why Harold is blocking the way, and Al knows Harold is smart and probably knows his geography, Heather would tell Alejandro that he's the last person she'd want to be if the Zing Zings kidnap them. Harold would say that he's afraid we're gonna get lost if you distract anyone, and we go looking for them, and Harold tries to throw Alejandro off, saying that he thinks he knows the way, but then doubting. Alejandro knows Harold is going the right way, but then Owen and Izzy would be playing around, and they go right, which makes Alejandro run to get them, because he knows his team can't finish the challenge without them. Bridget gets mad that Harold and Heather are blocking Alejandro from going with us, but Harold responds with, "He's gonna distract you. That's why we didn't allow him." Bridget then says, "If he's not going, then I'm gonna follow him. And you are all wrong." Bridget then runs for Alejandro, which Harold is very disappointed about. Tyler is just standing, but Harold would invite Tyler to walk with them. Tyler would get worried that his team would think he's a traitor, but considers he can spend more time with Harold, and he can have a chance to win for Team Chris, or at least get second, so he joins. Heather would ask why Tyler is joining, thinking he's gonna lose for his team, but Harold explains that they are good friends, and while Heather just walks. During the walk, Harold would lead everyone to the zipline, and he and Tyler get to talk about their lovers, who are right behind them, and their icks with Alejandro. Heather is just wondering how Harold and Tyler suddenly just became friends, but is happy that Alejandro is not with them. Bridget would try to kiss and be romantic with Alejandro, but he keeps chasing after Izzy and Owen, who are racing to the end. They soon find the Zing Zings, which they are fearing for their lives as they get tied. Soon, Victory and Amazon get into their camps. Leshawna would have a moment with Harold to thank him for his work in guiding everyone in this challenge, and reassuring him that she still values him a lot, which Harold really appreciates, and gets lovey-dovey over. The Zing Zings instead of Heather. I feel like Bridget is now worshipped, while Alejandro wants Bridget to set everyone free. Bridget would be too carried away with loving him, which Alejandro gives, but tries to get Bridget to set him free. Izzy and Owen also get lovey-dovey, and Alejandro facepalms. In the morning, Victory and Amazon make it to Machu Picchu, but Victory and Tyler can't move on without their teams, but Harold would tell Heather to find the treasure. At least Team Chris can't win. Tyler would be concerned that his team will lose, but Harold will assure that he should win, as he wants to get Bridget out for loving Alejandro. Tyler would thank Harold for being a good friend, and the two men set out to find their teammates. I feel like it would be funny if the two spent all day getting their teammates, and they do, trying to fight the Zing Zings, and then setting them free with Bridget crying that the moment is over, but Alejandro shot Harold and Tyler. Despite not liking him, they saved them. Alejandro would admit he definitely owes the 2-1 for saving them. Harold would just be taking jabs at Bridget for simping on Alejandro. Amazon would win, of course. I feel like Team Chris is at elimination, because 3 out of 4 members were caught by the Zing Zings, and were not even close to Machu Picchu at all. In the elimination, Alejandro would actually tell Tyler he'll spare him in the elimination for saving him. Tyler is thrilled that he is safe, so Alejandro would ask Tyler if he wants to vote Owen, but I feel like Tyler would say Izzy gives me the creeps, so the two vote for them and will support whoever goes in the tiebreaker. Well, there is no tiebreaker, as this is a non-elimination. Tyler would be laughing in Alejandro's face, saying that he'll be safe next elimination, because this one wasn't an elimination. Alejandro admits this is painfully true and he won't vote him next elimination, which Tyler screams for. We'd start off with Tyler telling Harold that he's safe in the next elimination because Alejandro promised as an IOU to not vote for him. Harold would comment nice, and would remember that Alejandro still owes him one. Harold and Tyler would notice Bridget and Lindsay cuddling with Alejandro, which Harold goes up and tells Alejandro to let go of the two. Bridget would shout at Harold, telling him that she can do whatever she wants, but Alejandro would tell her he'll handle this. Alejandro would calmly tell Bridget and Lindsay that they should stick to their teams for now, so you won't make your teammates angry at you, with which Bridget agrees, letting go of him. After the girls leave, Alejandro would tell Harold to make things better. I will leave your team alone for the rest of the day, which Harold is surprised to hear, but takes with a grain of salt. Soon, Alejandro approaches Tyler, getting touchy with him. Tyler would say, I'm into girls, but Alejandro promises to leave Lindsay alone with today, which Tyler likes. Alejandro then tells that us and Victory can work together to get our challenges finished. Tyler would like the idea, but would worry about Heather, as he was told she was an ally. Alejandro lies and tells Tyler that he won't have to worry a single bit about her. Tyler, not knowing any better, would think okay and would sit next to Lindsay. The plane crash lands, and Chris announces the statue building challenge. The teams would still get the same statues. Bridget would actually be helpful to Victory, finding the pieces and then bringing them. Leshawna would notice this change and would ask Harold if he had something to do with this. Harold says no, it was Alejandro, and Leshawna would comment, Alejandro isn't that bad. Harold doesn't really agree with this comment. Tyler and Lindsay bond a little bit, with Lindsay trying to remember Tyler's name. When Alejandro goes looking for Tyler, Tyler would tell Lindsay that he has to find the pieces real fast. Harold would tell Heather that Tyler is safe because of Alejandro's promise. Heather would think that's nice, but Harold is called by Leshawna, so he goes, but Tyler meets up with Heather. Heather says, so, Alejandro is doing you a favor, which Tyler says, that's right. And Heather suggests Harold grab Owen and Izzy's vote, so you can double-cross him. Tyler would express he kind of feel bad because Alejandro has sort of been good to him and Harold today, but Heather would point out that as long as your team doesn't finish, then you have a chance to get their votes and get him out. As much as Tyler wants to get him out, Alejandro has only been good to him today and would say maybe we should keep him for a little bit, which Heather firmly tells Tyler, you need to take him out now while you can. As Tyler leaves, Alejandro would appear as if he heard the entire talk. Heather would tell Alejandro off for eavesdropping, but Alejandro would charm her and say that it's cute you're trying to ally with him, but while you'll always think he's yours, he'll always be mine. And he mentions, oh, this is my last piece. Gotta win the challenge. See ya, which angers Heather. As Heather comes back to her team statue, Team Chris wins first class, and Harold makes it in time to place his team's statue's final piece. Team Amazon is not finished and is up for elimination. Heather would confront Harold and tells him, what were you thinking? Which Harold would say he didn't know that Team Chris finished quickly and you weren't close to finishing, which Heather grabs Harold by the shirt and tells him he better not be the reason why she's voted out. She then tells Tyler this could have been the chance Alejandro could have been voted out, which Tyler says, I'm sorry, but Heather says next time, do better. I mean worse. Alejandro would love seeing Heather rage. Al would come up to Lindsay, who thanks him for telling her to help her team in the challenge, and as she's happy she's not going to elimination. Alejandro would say, I did a favor for you that one, so can you do a favor for me? Which Bridget happily agrees to. I think Alejandro has seen this show before and would have seen Bridget and Gwen's friendship in Island. He tells Bridget to bond a bit with Gwen about their lovers and how they have changed over time. Then tell them about the threats of Heather and what she did in Season 1. Tell her to vote Heather and get the other teammates to vote her too, which Bridget agrees to. Bridget and Gwen would see each other before elimination just talking about Trent, who has gone crazy, and Bridget would feel bad Gwen had to go through him. Bridget would also admit Jeff was sort of an asshole in the Aftermath show, before which she did not like at all. Bridget and Gwen laughed those times off and enjoyed talking to each other. Bridget would then talk about Heather and her evil actions in Island, and that Gwen should vote her off. Gwen would tell Bridget that was Island, but Heather has been annoying this season, which Bridget says this is the perfect time to get her off. Gwen would consider voting her off for being annoying, and she knows she can get Cody's vote, and hopefully Sierra, so she says okay to it, with Bridget hugging Gwen one last time before elimination. Gwen would tell Cody to vote Heather for being annoying and being nice to him once for an alliance. You know Cody, he'd do anything for Gwen, so in the votes, it's a tiebreaker, but luckily for me and all of us, this episode was originally a tiebreaker, so we tapped a fashion show. Gwen chooses Cody and Heather chooses Harold to get back at him for causing this. I can see Tyler helping Heather while Bridget helps Gwen. I feel like Gwen would make a gothic, dark, nonchalant, cool outfit, while Heather goes for a glammy, rich, cool drip outfit for Harold, which he admits can really work for his rap career. The judges are Sierra, Owen, and Chris. Alejandro would be smirking the entire time, hoping Heather would lose. I feel like Sierra would only love Gwen's outfit because Cody is wearing it, but Owen and Chris find it a bit dark and not their style, while Sierra would also praise Heather, as the two are friendish, and Owen and Chris would think the drip is really cool. That means Gwen is out, but she's sad Cody is crying, and Alejandro is shocked, which Heather grins at him, and Alejandro says, oh, you want to play with my feelings? Well, two can play that game. Gwen is out, which Bridget and Cody say a long, heartfelt goodbye. The start of this episode has Cody sad over Gwen leaving. Sierra and Heather definitely do notice, and try to get him to stop crying, but to no avail. Alejandro would pull up to tell Bridget and Lindsay good morning. He also happens to see Cody sad, which he tries to go to him, but Heather would tell Alejandro that she knows he has malicious intent, which Alejandro says no, and he just doesn't want to see Cody sad all day. Sierra would tell Heather to just let Alejandro talk. Alejandro would talk about being sad Gwen is gone, and reassuring Cody that it will get better from here. Alejandro would try to comfort Cody even more by talking about the island days and how he liked he and Gwen together, but he sort of looks up to him for how he helped Gwen all this time. Would Alejandro think this? No, but he does to gain Cody's trust. Cody is like, really? Alejandro nods. Cody thanks Alejandro for the talk, and Alejandro would invite Cody to hang out with him and Bridget later. Also, Alejandro would end off telling Cody to be cautious of Heather because she's the main reason Gwen got out, and plans to vote off if your team loses. But I'll make sure you win alright. Everyone lands in the water and has to get to Newfoundland. I'm sure all the teams would have paddles since nobody is a one-man team. Heather would talk to Harold About her suspicions of Alejandro allying with Cody, Harold would tell Heather to be nice to him all day so you can gain his trust and win challenges and resist Alejandro. Heather agrees that that is a good plan, and Alejandro would have less challenges. Chris announces the boat challenge, which Heather would devise a plan to fight and hopefully sink Team Chris's boat, so they will fall behind and not win. Harold agrees with the strat. Heather would tell this to Tyler, but he's insistent that his team shouldn't lose as he has protection from Alejandro, which he can use to his advantage in a future elimination, but Heather insists to let she and Harold break the boat, which Tyler wouldn't agree with. Heather would then approach Cody, trying to comfort him on Gwen, but we'd still have Alejandro telling Heather that he did this to Cody earlier, and has his trust, but do what's right for you, which Heather...
Oh, he is good. I want the tape. Give me the tape! How do you open this thing?
As everyone is swimming, Heather would remind Tyler of the plan one more time, which he still wouldn't agree with, telling her to stop, but Heather says don't tell Alejandro. Harold and Heather would make their teams row next to Team Chris, who is in the middle. Harold would try splashing water into Team Chris to make them uncomfortable, but his team would question his morals, which he says he's trying to give us the win, but Bridget would see this as slowing down Team Chris, which Bridget tells Harold to stop, and Lizzie tries to force Harold to stop because he's getting Tyler wet. Tyler would hear Lindsay remembers his name and celebrates, and thanks Lindsay for remembering him, and would block Harold splashing. Heather would see Tyler preventing Harold, and would ask him, "What got into your mind?" Stop it, and ends up jumping onto the boat, whacking Tyler with a paddle which hurts him. All of Team Victory would see that, and they would get mad at Heather, as that was straight up wrong, and take jabs at her for doing that. Alejandro would comment, "That's so cute, seeing you struggle and sabotage," which Heather throws Cody's paddle at Al, but misses. And she grabs Sierra's paddle, but misses again. Sierra and Cody get mad at Heather for losing the paddles, but Alejandro slows down to invite Amazon onto the boat. Cody would thank Alejandro as he's the best, while Sierra jumps on, and Heather begrudgingly steps on. After a long time, the boats are neck and neck until the Team Chris gets a bit tired of paddling, double their weight, which they slow down. Alejandro would not let his or Cody's team lose, so he suggests everyone jump onto Team Victory's boat. And then sure, which everyone does, but Heather would reluctantly do that. Because of this, Victory is eliminated for the day, which Harold takes jabs at Heather for not slowing Team Chris down, which she apologizes and groans. Team Chris and Amazon now have the 3 challenges. Harold would secretly help Heather though, so Alejandro doesn't win. First is the apple cider, which Owen and Sierra drink. I think they can finish around the same time. Next is the slang, which Harold can try to interpret and tell Heather they are successful. Alejandro would come back from getting the fish, and now it's the fish kissing. Cody would be grossed out, kissing the fish, but Sierra would tell Cody to imagine it's her lips, which grosses Cody even more. Alejandro would then say it's a close match, but out of kindness, I will help you, Cody. Imagine kissing Gwen's lips, but Heather would tell Alejandro to shut it, and tells Cody the same thing, which Cody of course gets the win for Amazon. He thanks Alejandro, which angers Heather more, as Alejandro smirks. This is a non-elimination, so Harold is glad, but takes jabs at Heather for not doing good. Alejandro would try to sit down with Cody, who's eating the clam chowder along with Bridget, but Heather would walk in, punishing Alejandro away, telling him to stay away from Cody, which in turn makes Bridget mad at Heather for ruining the moment and takes jabs at her. Heather would tell Bridget that Jeff is gonna be real mad once everyone tells him, but Bridget ends up slapping Heather, which Alejandro feels bad and tells Bridget it's okay and tries to comfort and charm Heather one more time. We'd start off the episode with Heather trying to get Cody to stop trusting Alejandro, but Cody would say, Alejandro has only treated me better and even gave me a win, but Heather says it's because he sees you as weak, which Cody doesn't believe. Harold would pull over, taking Heather to talk. Harold would give Heather a prompt. He has helped her team 4 times, while Heather hasn't helped his team once. So he feels like he needs a slice of the alliance and of Heather to win the challenge for once. Heather would bring up the fact that he was the reason she almost got voted off, but again, that would just sour Harold even more, so she finally decides to give Harold a win, as long as he can get Tyler and Victory to stop trusting Alejandro. Harold wouldn't expect Tyler now trusts Alejandro, but plans to carry the deal, which Heather reminds Harold that Tyler still has immunity from Alejandro. Izzy would still go crazy and jumps off the plane, causing Owen to jump out too, and the plane landing on top of them, sending them to infirmary. Alejandro doesn't care as he plans to gain Tyler's trust while using this chance to finally vote out Owen. Heather would tell Tyler that this is now his chance to use Owen to vote Alejandro, but Alejandro would get motivational with Tyler and pumps him up for the challenge, which Heather doesn't really like. It's the diving challenge. Harold would ask Leshawna to go first so he can tell Bridget and Lindsay a few things. Harold would try to tell Lindsay and Bridget to stop trusting Alejandro. We should be fueled by team spirit, not enemy's trust, which Bridget corrects Harold, that Alejandro was the one to tell her to do better in challenges, and Harold could have said it directly, but he didn't. Harold gets more mad when he mentions Bridget hooking up with Alejandro very early and how Jeff must have felt. Bridget would ask, "Why are you so against Alejandro? Tell me why you're helping Heather, the one who attacked Tyler for doing nothing to her." Lindsay would also agree, saying that Tyler didn't deserve that treatment. Harold makes the argument, "At least Heather never tried to sabotage our team," which Bridget snaps and tells Harold, "If you don't stop working with Heather, we're not going to help you in challenges at all." Harold is fine because he says he has Leshawna. When Leshawna comes back, I'm sure Harold can last a bit underwater from some technique he knows, so he spends a bunch of time underwater. Tyler would keep getting zapped and Cody struggles with a shark. Later, Cody would get shocked by the eel, but luckily Alejandro has found the gold and is there to save Cody. Cody is saved, and again, Heather steals the gold from Alejandro to give to Harold, who wins for the team. Leshawna is happy but notices Bridget and Lindsay aren't, with Heather smirking behind. Cody is sent to infirmary, which Izzy is taken by the military for smarts. Owen is then saddened by Izzy's exit and has to sing a song about it. This reminds Cody of Gwen leaving, but Cody would comfort Owen as he's sad. But before the next challenge, Alejandro would have a confessional explaining that he's going to send a false sense of security to Heather and Harold by being overconfident in this challenge, but then failing. Leshawna would ask Harold what's up with Bridget and Lindsay, and Harold says they're just obsessing over Alejandro and have a problem with me working with Heather to win challenges. Leshawna would remind Harold that he can't completely trust Heather, as she can do anything to any of us, like hitting Tyler with a paddle for no reason. Harold would admit that wasn't right, but at least she helped us get a win last challenge and is putting in effort to eliminate the threats like Alejandro, who made Bridget and Lindsay stop helping us. Throughout the challenge, Leshawna would be warning Harold of Heather and her unpredictable actions. I'll go through who goes and if they're faster or not. Cody and Sierra are fastest. Alejandro and Tyler would be slow at first, gaining Heather's overconfidence. They're slower. Leshawna and Harold go. They're fastest. Heather and Cody go, and they're a bit slow. Alejandro didn't expect Owen had to go, and he and Owen do, and they do terribly, but at least Heather's confident in winning. Bridget and Lindsay are very hesitant to go, but eventually do it, so Heather won't win. Cody and Sierra go, and they're not faster. Same with Tyler and Alejandro, who's seen by Heather sabotaging himself, with her realizing Alejandro was building her overconfidence and is sick of him. Lastly, Harold and Leshawna get the fastest time, winning the challenge. Team Chris is at elimination for having the worst times. Heather would enforce Tyler to get Owen's vote, which Tyler kind of thinks no after Heather whacked a paddle on him. Alejandro would grab Tyler to remind him that if he votes with Owen, you'll take me away, who constantly wants the best for you and Lindsay, and is the reason why Bridget is happy to do this game without Jeff. Don't take that away from her. Vote Owen, which convinces Tyler to vote for Owen, because he'd like to be happy with Lindsay and wants Bridget to be happy. So with 2 votes, Owen is out. But Owen would call Alejandro Al a few more times, and after the elimination, Heather would see Alejandro is still in, which she gets mad at Tyler for wasting a chance of voting him off. Tyler explains that he wanted me and Lindsay to be happy together, and is the only one bringing happiness to Bridget. Harold would hear this talk and steps in. Harold would ask, "You hate Alejandro still, right?" Which Tyler says, "Yeah." "Step aside, Tyler." Heather, at least he had a thought. Alejandro was too manipulative, and we couldn't get Owen on our side. Harold defends Tyler, as he thinks Tyler is a good friend and wants to help him. Heather would argue Tyler has the power to get Alejandro out, but he blew it, and "Why are you even arguing with me? I'm the one who brought you the win." Harold retorts saying, I'm the one who brought you several wins, and we haven't won since Yukon before today, so hey, at least consider Tyler is still great, is still trying to get Alejandro out." Heather would tell Harold that Tyler was defending Alejandro and allows him to mess with your team. Harold argues, "So what? I have Leshawna at least, and Bridget and Lindsay are only mad because they don't want me working with you, because you whacked Tyler in the head for no reason, which was messed up." Heather would say, "Fine, if you think this way, our alliance is off. I quit." Harold would also quit the alliance. We'd see Jeff and Blaney trying to raise money for the fuel for the jumbo jet as it is stuck in Jamaica. We'd see half of the Drama Brothers perform a song. Gwen is interviewed about her time in World Tour. Jeff would say that Gwen should have totally got the win, as the nonchalant look was really cool. And the two bond over Heather, who is cold and nobody likes her. But Jeff would raise thousands of bucks by selling a bunch of Gwen's bras, which she's not enthusiastic about. We'd have clips of Duncan and Ezekiel that raise money. They'd also raise money for DJ to touch an animal, which goes terribly wrong, as the studio has been destroyed and they need another $500,000. We get Noah and Jeff talking and then singing about Alejandro being devious and manipulative to team victory. That they then raise money by throwing a dodgeball at him for every $1,000. This is a callback to Season 1 dodgeball. We'd also see Owen, who has to eat a bunch of food within a certain time, but every $1,000 decreases a second. Lastly, Brainzilla is tested on a wheel, which turns which she turns back into Izzy after rolling, but Jeff and Blaney do raise the money. We'd see Bridget sitting with Alejandro again, but Harold would talk to Leshawna about how he's sick of Bridget and Lindsay sticking with Alejandro, which Bridget hears and retorts back saying, "I'm sick of you working with Heather," which Alejandro breaks up the fight and tells Victory that the team shouldn't be split because of who we like in our wonderful opinions. Bridget would think at first, but Alejandro smiles at Bridget, getting her to be okay with Harold and saying sorry. Harold would say he needs some time away to accept Bridget again. Harold would hear and see Jack the Ripper, which he gets kidnapped. Sierra would be using her computer while chewing gum and sitting next to Cody, who's visibly uncomfortable, which Heather notices. Sierra would also be kissing Cody's ear, possibly getting her gum stuck. Heather would have a confessional doubting Harold, saying he can do nothing without me and his team will lose. Everyone would still have to jump off a plane to London. Everyone would be seated in the double-decker bus, which Chris would announce the challenge of catching Jack the Ripper. Leshawna would be terrified to notice that Harold is missing, and Chris explains that he's been kidnapped by Jack the Ripper, which terrifies Leshawna beyond belief, to the point she's holding tightly onto Bridget and Lindsay. Heather would also be terrified because Amazon is a smaller team, and Alejandro would comfort Tyler, who is not comfortable with Al's touching him. Alejandro would try to look at Heather, but Heather looks away. The first challenge is to strip the guard. Cody and Heather would be grossed out, but they try to get Sierra to strip the guard. Leshawna would try to strip the guard while looking everywhere, paranoid of Jack the Ripper. Bridget wouldn't strip the guard as she thinks Jeff is still her boyfriend. Alejandro would charm Tyler into stripping the guard, and Alejandro would ask Heather if she needs help stripping the guard, which Heather tells Alejandro to scram, but Heather would immediately come up with pretending the guard is Cody. Leshawna would be talking to Bridget about Harold and the past. Leshawna would tell Bridget that we haven't treated Harold that great, and now he's been kidnapped. Bridget would mention that Harold worked with Heather, which Leshawna doesn't really trust Heather, but makes a point that he did that because we were too focused on Alejandro, and we were too distracted by him. Harold only wanted to succeed and win challenges, and now he might be gone. I don't mean to be harsh with him in the beginning, but his random fact spitting was a bit quirky for me, and I was getting tired of it now, but I realized I miss that Harold, and I really hope to get him back. Bridget would feel bad that Leshawna's sad, and also thinks about how she treated Harold, who only wanted to help the team at times. She got too carried away with Alejandro. Team Chris gets their clue. Team Amazon gets their clue and victory, but Tyler would be removing the socks with his teeth. Heather is just spooked and really wants Sierra and Cody's comfort, so she'll let the two have fun stretching her. Leshawna is holding onto Bridget, fearing for Jack the Ripper. As soon as they get up, Leshawna thanks Bridget for comforting her and comments, "I guess this is why Jeff really likes you," which reminds Bridget of her relationship with Jeff. Leshawna would trick Lindsay into thinking the stretching device makes her flexible, which Lindsay falls for. Bridget would think that is cruel, but Leshawna promises it will be fun. We'd see a montage of Lindsay being stretched in pain while trying to enjoy it, which Leshawna and Bridget can't help but laugh. They get their clue with Lindsay in pain, thinking she's flexible now. Amazon get their clue with Heather asking Sierra to carry her to the next area. Tyler would volunteer to be stretched, saying he's flexible. Amazon and Victory make it to the dining room where they approach the pups. Sierra would fend the pups for Cody and Heather while the two look for the next clue. Leshawna would be terrified, but I'm sure Bridget can do tricks with them that calms Leshawna down until they notice Lindsay is gone and could be kidnapped by Jack the Ripper. Bridget would calm Leshawna down with some cute tricks and they'd find a clue together. Alejandro carrying Tyler would make it to the dining room where they pet the pups and find a clue. I'm sure Cody and Heather would think about the double-decker bus, and Alejandro would too. Cody and Heather high-five, with Heather saying if we're the only one to go there and we get it right, we are such geniuses, which Cody has a confessional, explaining he never thought he would see this enthusiasm from Heather, but it's a feeling he's starting to like. Leshawna and Bridget have no idea, but Leshawna would suggest some random two-story building, which Bridget goes with. In the bus, Heather is just sick that Alejandro is here, but they search on different floors. Alejandro would wish Amazon good luck and hopes they don't get kidnapped, but he'd totally save them if they were. While searching, Cody's ambushed by Jack the Ripper and is placed in the driver's seat, which Sierra sees and fights Jack to save Cody. Heather would be cheering on Sierra as she beats Jack and puts him in the sack. That rhymed. Alejandro would congratulate Amazon, and Alejandro congratulating Heather for surviving, which Heather is sick but loving of. Bridget and Leshawna are stumped. They might have came to the building for nothing, but they notice the show and the person performing. Amazon would come back with Jack the Ripper, who is revealed to be Ezekiel, which Chris applauds. Leshawna and Bridget would bring back Duncan. Yep, he's coming back, and Leshawna comments that Harold is not gonna like this at all. Everyone is surprised to see Duncan back, and Harold is not thrilled at all. Team Victory would win, like Team Amazon in the original, because of Chris's BS judgment. Now, who's going to elimination? and receiving Duncan. Those two have to happen. It can't be victory because they won. I feel like Heather would be so angry arguing Chris on his BS and asking how Amazon didn't win. Chris tries to get Heather to zip, but Heather would argue all this time and effort and risking our lives for nothing. Chris snaps and declares Amazon the loser, but gives Duncan as a consolation prize. I don't think Chris would give Team Chris Duncan to even out the teams because, I mean, did Chris even try to even the teams when 5-5 when DJ was around? Anyways, Chris would be annoyed with Heather's arguing. In the votes, Heather would remember Sierra's gum chewing and would pick the gum out of Cody's ear. Heather would ask, is this the person you want to be with for the rest of the game? Which Cody obviously says no and agrees to vote Sierra. Heather would also tell Duncan that Sierra's a freak who stuck gum in Cody's ear so she can get Duncan's vote too, which Duncan easily agrees to. So with 3 votes, Sierra is out and is crying that she won't be with Cody anymore, but Cody's relieved. We start off with everyone welcoming Duncan back. Almost everyone. Alejandro would try to introduce himself, with which Duncan would find Alejandro to be cool and good looking. Heather would budge in and tells Duncan to never trust him as long as you're in the game. Alejandro would then say that Heather has trouble talking to me for some unexplained reason. Then Al would charm Heather and says she doesn't have to hold back ever, which Heather loves and hates, but Duncan laughs at Heather in the confessional, saying she totally has a crush on him, and she's trying so hard not to laugh. Alejandro would promise that he won't do anything that messes anyone for the next 24 hours. Harold would step in and say, you shouldn't trust any of them. Duncan would say, hey, it's been a while, and would pat him on the back, but Harold tells Duncan to not touch him, and that he is not going to get any more tips nor interactions from him, as he doesn't want to deal with Duncan again after what he has gone through last season and this season. Leshawna and Bridget approach Duncan and apologize that Harold has been working his ass to lead Team Victory. Duncan would then admit in the confessionals that everyone wants power and recalls the guys' alliance he formed in Island. After making a prediction that I'll be invited to a bunch of alliances, he'd know everyone will try to be nice to him, but he's going to play hard to get, as he will take advantage of their kindness. Duncan knows he can't bug Harold anymore, but he asks Heather who else is on the team, and she points to Cody. Duncan would be like, hey, Cody, what's up, my man? Which Cody would tell Duncan, stop being nice to me, I know you'll pick on me, just like you did to Harold last season, which Duncan takes this as Cody letting him pick on him, so Duncan would thank Cody and would spin him around, causing him to fall. Chris would mistake the Olympics being set in Rome and reroutes to Athens. It's the Greek Games, and one person from every team will have to compete in an event. Alejandro would assure Duncan that if he needs any help with anything, Tyler is here to help. Which Tyler's like, really? But Harold would push Duncan from Alejandro, telling Alejandro to stop. Hogging Duncan for your own, which Heather replies, he's not even on any of your teams, so would you quit trying to ally with him and let him be? Duncan would interpret the 3 as very power-hungry threats in the game, which he'd like to mess with to prove they aren't as powerful as they seem. The first challenge is the wild boar hunt, which Duncan volunteers, Leshawna would go, and Alejandro volunteers, which Heather tries to object, but Chris ignores her. Harold would be spitting facts about the Olympics and the historical places, but Duncan would tell Harold these places ain't as old in comparison to your mother, which offends Harold, but he must hold himself back to not make himself seem like a threat to everyone. Harold would tell Leshawna to beat Duncan and Alejandro no matter what, and don't even try talking to them, which Leshawna sorta agrees to. The second challenge is wrestling, which Harold definitely volunteers to let his anger out. Tyler's only one for Team Chris, so he goes, and Cody would try to prove he's strong, so he goes. We see Tyler attempt to fight, but he misses every time. Harold would do his kung fu, but is charged by Cody, sending all three men to the ground for some time. Meanwhile, Leshawna would remind Duncan of the things Alejandro has done, like attach Bridget to a pole, which Duncan laughs, but Leshawna tells Duncan this is not an attempt to get him in any alliance with her. Duncan would then suggest we beat Alejandro together, which Leshawna agrees with, contradicting the last statement. Alejandro would remind Duncan that he can help anytime, which Duncan takes advantage of and tells Leshawna to attract a wild boar to go to Al's direction. Duncan would pretend that sawdust went in his eye, causing him to fall, and asks Al to pick him up. Al would do so, but Duncan would slap Al as he stands up and smacks him, sending Al to the ground. Duncan would say sorry it was an accident, which Alejandro believes, and says it's okay, but then he gets trampled by the wild boar. Duncan would laugh, and as Leshawna high-fives, Duncan would hold Leshawna and tip her over, giving the advantage to get the gold medal, which he does. Also, while all this is happening, Duncan would have to sing a song about causing anarchy, but Leshawna would think Duncan is going to accept a bunch of alliances. Cody would keep on charging, but eventually gets himself out, and I think it would be funny if Tyler just had to dodge, and that's what tips Harold over and gives him the win. Next is the hurdles, which are Heather, Alejandro, and Bridget. Alejandro would try showing off his skills to both girls, but he fails. Soon, Bridget knows she can't beat Heather, so she decides to tackle Heather, giving her the advantage and the win, which Heather is mad at, but Duncan says, I don't know. I didn't know Bridget was like this. The last challenge is a tiebreaker, and it is to get the last medal, which all 3 teams have 1 medal. Cody, Tyler, and Lindsay would go. Duncan would tell Cody he better not fail, and nice bikini, which Cody punches Duncan. Tyler would motivate Lindsay, but he gets tired and falls. Lindsay would try, but Cody is motivated as he thinks winning can make Duncan bully him less, so he would go on to win by a tiny bit. Duncan would celebrate with Cody, telling him sorry and he definitely deserves the punch. Alejandro would still think Duncan can be his still. Team Chris and Victory are at the elimination, but the intern is still out. Total anarchy is what Duncan is playing. And that is part 1 of this What If. Make sure to see part 2, which is on screen now, to see what happens next. I really had fun writing this first part, and I hope you enjoy the second. See ya, and bye y'all.